Jess, we are right around the corner, so we're not too far away, and we've bumped into this amazing human right by here. Who, my friend, can you introduce who you are and what it is you're up to at the moment?
I'm Matthew Alford. I'm a teacher at the University of Bath. I've come down to London for the day to protest for the release of Julian Assange.
There's a hell of a lot more to you than that, though, isn't there? My producer's just been bigging you up for the past half an hour, telling me about all of the amazing stuff you do. So before we do a deep dive into all the Julian Assange stuff, tell us a bit more about your work and what it is you're up to generally.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm probably best known for writing a book called National Security Cinema, which was turned into a documentary called Theatres of War, and that showed how the CIA and the Department of Defense in the United States, as well as various other organizations, rewrite Hollywood film scripts. And that was the main thing that I have been doing for the last few years. We found original documentation through the Freedom of Information Act to prove that and to show that there were many thousands of films and many thousands of TV programs that were rewritten for political reasons. So that's been sort of the most kind of scandalous thing I've done. I also did another documentary called The Writer with No Hands about the alleged conspiracy surrounding a Hollywood screenwriter who disappeared in mysterious circumstances in the mid-90s. So that's kind of been my work. I do everything I do now. The last few years, in particular, has been writing about the relationship between war and the media. I'm currently doing a channel on YouTube called Worst Year Ever, which is about foreign policy, the foreign policy nightmare at the moment in the Middle East, but also concurrently, obviously, in Ukraine and potentially in the South China Seas as well, of course.
So you're doing some incredible stuff then, which then there's a lot of parallels there, I think, with the reason we're all here today, which is obviously the campaign for Julian Assange. How do you feel about how things have gone over the past 2 days from what we've been hearing from inside and outside the courts?
Well, it's a rather binary thing, isn't it? It's either good or it's bad. So I mean, obviously, it's very encouraging to see a lot of people out as part of the protests. I'm really pleased to see that. I didn't really know what to expect when I arrived here today. When I think last time I came down to London, I think it was maybe a year ago, when everyone held hands around Parliament. That was a really great idea, and there must have been 10, 20,000 people there, I think. And then there's been other times when it's been much smaller gatherings, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. It's pretty big crowds, I'd say, bearing in mind we're at a court.
And it's raining.
And it's raining horrible. It's midweek.
I haven't been up at 6 a.m. in a long time, guys. I made that. So it's been, that shows the level of commitment and passion, for definite. Because even despite the weather and the wind and the rain and the early starts and the traffic and all the chaos, everyone has turned out, haven't they, both days, you know, from first thing in the morning and stay till the end. Yeah,
I've seen a lot of familiar faces. I'm sure you've interviewed some of them as well, including Corbyn and various others. So it's been an exciting day as much as anything else. How's it going? We won't really know until the result, unfortunately. But I mean, I think one of the key things I've always felt is what Stella said, which is that these kind of extradition cases that she mentions in the documentary, I think it's in Ithaca, she says, you know, it's pretty much 100% down to public opinion rather than law at this point. And that's one of the reasons I felt it's so important to come out for this. Is it's not just that, you know, we might have a bit of effect on the fringes. Probably the numbers here are the numbers that we get for any of these protests probably are crucial to the survival of Julian Assange, and therefore too the whole integrity of journalism throughout the Western world, probably throughout the whole world, really, because the United States has shown that it is willing and able to have this legal reach against popular opinion and requiring a great deal of censorship and various other forms of abuse. So it has global implications. I think for me, the Julian Assange case is it really does embody, linking to the question that you asked a minute ago. I think Julian really does embody all of these issues. There is no way of separating Julian Assange from the fate of Ukrainians, from the fate of Russians in that conflict, from peace in that region, from peace in the Middle East region, from peace in China and Taiwan. All of these things are so closely interconnected. And if there's one symbol, one human symbol of that, it is Julian Assange and his suffering. Obviously, there are other people in the world who are suffering right now, even worse, the children of Gaza and so on. However, Julian Assange for what he has done actively, for that role he played as the world's greatest publisher, the world's greatest journalist of the 21st century. And for him to be treated like that is a stain on the conscience of the West. And we mustn't have that. We mustn't have that. In the end of the day, it's just a few people in national security states of these countries, the United States and Britain, and we can overturn that. And we might well do it. And if we don't do it today, we will keep going. We might get there. It's these kind of conflicts. Sorry to keep going on, but I've got the one thing I would say, because there's always so much hopelessness about protests, and that issue that so many people have said. Whenever I've been to protests, including the Occupy movement one and the XR ones, people always say, "Well, we protested in 2003 and we didn't stop the Iraq War." Yeah, but we did stop the war in Iran in 2008. Probably, which was that the Bush administration was gearing up for. And I tell you what we definitely stopped, because it was documented very, very clearly, was the US-UK bombing strikes on Syria in 2013. That happened just from a few people picking up their telephones. It's an old-fashioned telephone that I'm using here, and calling their MPs and their congresspersons. That's all that happened in 2013, and it stopped that bombing campaign by the Obama administration. And it was chaos. It was curtains for the British and American war establishments at that point. They couldn't do anything for several years in terms of aggressive foreign policy. They did eventually overturn that, but that's the reason that you have to keep the protests going. You have to keep the protests going, and that includes turning out on the street, but it also includes write to your MP. It may sound old-fashioned, but do it. Get those emails in, write in those petitions, turn up, have a good time, engage with people. Any little thing you can do, whether with whatever stage you're at in life, whatever abilities or disabilities you have, just do a little bit of something, and it all contributes, and eventually we'll get that that momentum will be sufficient to make a better world. We're close to making a better world. We know we're close. The amount of conflicts, the amount of wars and abuses, it's been much, much harder to do the past 50 years since Vietnam. They can't drop cluster bombs these days. You can't do those kind of things. So, and that comes from people power. It comes from democratization. We can do it. It seems hopeless sometimes because we've got a conservative government and all this stuff, but we're not far off it, and we need to do it. We really need to get it done.
Beautifully and powerfully put, man. You've already answered my last question. I was going to ask you to give us a rebel-rousing speech to give people hope and power and energy, but you've just done that beautifully. So I think, obviously, this guy's got a lot of awesome stuff going on. So can you tell us what's next for you? What are you going to keep doing? And also, if you could let the people as well know where they can find you and stay up to date with what you're doing.
You can find me, Dr. Matthew Alford, on YouTube. That's probably the best place to find me. And follow my series there, and also on Substack. Which is, I think it is Dr. Matthew Alford on Substack. Follow that. That's where I'm doing all my best stuff at the moment, all my sort of the most important things to do with international conflict, and also the role of propaganda and political communication within these various really important areas of war.
Amazing. And what are you working on at the moment? What's coming up next?
I'm doing a couple of articles for that. Also, occasionally, the latest things that I put out a video about Julian, obviously, but various other things. It's just articles to do with propaganda, also conspiracy theories. I just put out one about Kennedy and one about Diana. You know, the old faves.
They're all aliens, right? Is that right?
Yeah. We don't tell the people that though. For goodness sake. But that's really the project I'm doing this year. Is a year-long project, as I see it, called Worst Year Ever, and that is analysing the media discourse and the lies basically that surround these major conflicts.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, thank you so much for stopping to talk with us today, and thank you so much for being here and everything that you're doing generally. It's great to speak to you.